Hi, it's Fiona Fernandez from Wifey Handcrafts. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I'm just going to show you how I cut out my frames the other week on my card. So this was my card, and this frame around the edge here, I cut it so that I've used these stitched rectangle dies, these ones, but I've extended it a bit. And what I've discovered is I actually used this one when I did it. So you turn it over, of course, to cut, but just so you can see the stitched bit. I used that one and I made it smaller, but I just noticed today that if you use the next one down, it actually works out the right size that way, but you need to extend it that way. So I'm going to do this one today to show you how I did that. So the first one I cut this way, and then I put it that way and cut it out. So I'm just going to grab my machine in a minute. So I'm cutting my card, I'll just use one of these, and the card stock size for that card, I cut it to about 14.5, the edges, so it goes to 14.5, maybe a tiny bit more, but I'll do it 14.5. And the other measurement's 10.2. That's my measurement, so we'll do, I've got enough that way, 14.5, so I'll do the 10.2 first. So I'm just measuring it to the 10.2 on this side. 10.2. This way we'll have a finished one. When I did the other one, I wasn't sure what size I was doing it, so I just did it on a bit bigger, and then I cut it down. But I'm actually going to do this one to this size, 14.5. So we measure over here to the 14.5, and there's only a little bit to come off that. I'll just move those bits off the table. And I'll just get my cut and emboss machine. So if you're buying anything in March of 2002, there's my host code, and there's my information up there. I'm going to cover it up in a second. Be quick. So I do lives on Wednesday night. Now I'll just put this here so you can see this side of it. So I've got my Stampin' Up! Cut and Emboss machine, number 1, number 2. Now if you were buying the mini, so the mini is on sale at the moment for March of 2002. These dies, this one will fit through here. All these dies will fit through here except the largest one. So they're not recommended for the mini in the catalogue, but just so you know that the largest one won't fit, but everything else will fit. So the mini is 20% off at the moment, so that's how big it is compared to the other one. Sit it next to it. It's cute, isn't it? It's, yeah, so it's about 9 centimetres wide, the plate, so you can fit some of the dies in it. That's on sale right now. So the way I do this is I put it on here. Let's get some more light going on here. Better? Yeah. So if you look at it like this, it's going to be, let me just move that up. If I put it there, you're not going to get it all, like, see how it's too short? So what we're going to do is we're going to put it on one end. So I'll move it down to the bottom end. I'll just show you where I'm putting it. So I'm centering it with my eyes, looking at the centering. You could measure if you really want to, but I'm just looking at the whole thing and saying, I think, oh, hang on, let me pull it out of there. I just look at it and go, I think that's about right. And like I said, you can measure it if you want it perfectly equal around the edges, but I just tend to look at it and go, yeah, I think that's okay. That's where I want it. And then I put this plate on the top, but we're not putting it up to the end like that. We're going to bring it down a little bit because we don't want to cut that end yet. We want to cut this end. So I would normally do this straight down onto the thing, but I'll just do it in the air to show you. So I'm going to put it to about there. Now the other one I did the other way, so I was cutting it with the thing around the other way, and I made the plate come to about the same side on both sides, so that it did indent it a little bit with the foils. This cardstock will be okay, but on the foils it does mark easily. So the foil marked it easily, so I ended up with a bit of a line there and a bit of a line there on the piece that's cut out in the middle. So I did that so that it would look more even when I'm using that piece later on. So just keep those things in mind as well. So I'll just put this one on here and just get it on there and hold it very firmly. Pop it in your machine. So you want to make sure that all of the dye itself, move that then, is on the plate underneath, the white plates. So you want to make sure all the dye here is on the white plates. See, my white plate is it's almost right at the edge of my white plate, but it's on, so that's okay. This edge here is okay because it's not going to cut where I don't have a plate. Hold it down firmly, just give it a little push in at the end here because we've got to get that plate going in there. Once it goes, the little handle, oh, you can't see my handle, hang on. Once I push it in a little bit, the handle moves. See the handle's moving over here on the left? So once you've got it in the right spot, you can start rolling. Just hold it very firmly in place and just start rolling it through. So this top plate is right at the end of my machine right now. It's going to go bang in a second. There we go. So once it's done its bang, it's done. Just keep rolling it and it'll then come out. Just pull out the top two plates for you. So the top two plates, take your plate off. Just put those ones back in the machine, ready to go again. And you'll see that it did mark it a little bit on the card, but I don't find it marks it normally on those. So you end up with something that looks like that. And then I'm going to turn it around because I want to do the same thing again. You don't have to turn it around when you're working by yourself, it's okay, but when you're doing it this way, to show everybody, I've got to flip things around. So the die will actually fit into the groove of what you've already cut. It's always a good idea with these size dies too, to put them on a tiny bit of an angle when you're cutting. But when we're doing this, you want to make sure you've covered right up until you cut. So we have, so that's not an issue. We're not going to cut this end here. We're going to be cutting this other end here. Actually, I'll turn it back around that way. So I want to get in the groove. So at the moment, where the groove is, it's sitting right into that cut that I've made already. It's just sitting right in there. See how flat that's sitting? So that's looking pretty good. So you can just hold it there. And so make sure your plate doesn't cover this end here. We want to cut that end. So we'll put my plate like this. And again, you can, so I want to make sure it's not covering this end, because our cut goes down a fair way. It goes down to there somewhere. We're quite covered. So I'm just going to make sure the plates are like that. So you can put it in either way. You can put it back in this way, or you can turn it around the other way, whatever you're comfortable with. Just whatever you do, make sure you got a grip on it, whichever way you go. So this one is right near the end, but that's okay, because you can see that I've got the groove down. Let's hope we've got the groove in the right spot. We'll find out in a second. Let's go. Let's go. Woohoo! Look at that. Ta-da! Move this out of the way. Okay, let's have a look at that on the table. That worked out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with that. And then you've got another piece you can use. So it did mark a little tiny bit in there, the dent. I'm not too worried about it on this card. The other thing you could do with this is run it through an embossing folder if you don't like the marks that are left on it, so that you can still use that piece for something else, and you'll have a fancy bit. But you can do this with lots of dies. So this is one example with the stitch rectangles, but some of the dies that have sentiment labels that are, you know, might not be quite long enough for what you want, you can do this with those as well. So you just have to get your head around where you place your plates. So basically what you don't want to cut, you leave the plate off, and then you turn it around, so you can shorten them as well. You can extend or shorten just by lining up that die onto the cut piece. So if I wanted to make that a shorter die, I could have lined it up on there, on that part there, and made it more of a square even. So you can take your stitch rectangle and make it a square. It's totally up to you. So that's my little help video for today. So happy stamping and crafting, and if you've got any questions, send me a message. I've got my stampinup.net there, that's got all my contact details in there. I've got a blog as well. I'm starting to put some little free tutorials on there, and with simple card instructions, and also I have a reference to my Square shop, which I have some card instructions for sale as well. Okay, ciao!